Hello 7th and 8th graders, this is Skill Builder 5 and today we're going to continue working through the Michael Allen warm-ups. Last time we left off partway through the stylistic bowing section, section 4, and so we're going to pick up right there where we left off with number 14, Grand Martelet. You might be looking at this music and say, man, this looks an awful lot like staccato, and you are correct. Martelet is a type of staccato. So staccato notes, we know they're short, they have a space between them, but martelet goes a step further and describes some other characteristics of the bowing. So when you play martelet, first of all, the note is going to have a really sharp bite at the beginning, basically an accent. And then you're going to use a lot of bow, move that bow really, really fast before you stop your bow to create the space. You can see underneath it says WB, that stands for whole bow. You'll see that in your music sometimes, indicating either what section of the bow to be in or how much bow to use. So whole bow, we're going to have a bite at the beginning of the note, use lots of bow, and then stop it to make it staccato. So let me play section 14 for you. It will sound like this. Awesome. Moving on to 15, hooked or linked bowing. You actually have seen this before. I always call it hooked bowing. And we actually have this in stamp and dance, where you do two notes in the same bow direction, but it's not a slur. There's a space between the notes because they have a staccato marking. Now, in this case, they haven't added the staccato marking, but hooked bowing, you always do it in this way, where you play the first note, stop the bow, and then play the second note. You can see in this case, they are not even. They're not both eighth notes. The first one is a dotted eighth note, and the second is a 16th note. So it's going to sound a little bit almost like off balance. You have a long note and a short note, and a long note and a short note, which actually is similar to what we have in stamp and dance. So this is a great thing for us to practice. Here is what 15 sounds like. To number 16, Loré. And by the way, one of the things that I love about this section of the warm-ups is it's teaching you all sorts of vocabulary words that describe how to move your bow. And so down the road, you might see these notes in orchestra music or in a solo that you're working on, and then you'll know what it's asking you to do with your bow. So make sure you're taking a note of what these words mean. And I can tell you, I wish I would have known these in middle school. So keep up the great work with this. Now, when we talk about Loré, the first thing I want to point out to you is that when you play notes, there are 3 different ways that you can play to create space or no space in between them. So first of all, you can make them staccato, where you stop the bow when there's a space. You also can make them legato, where your bow never stops. There is a happy medium between those two. We call it détaché, and it looks like this. There's a little space between some of the notes, but it's not like staccato where you're stopping your bow for a long time. It's just a little tiny space, very gentle, almost like you just kind of lifted your bow up for a second, or just barely paused it in between. So when you do Loré bowing, it's sort of like hook bowing, where you move your bow in the same direction to play multiple notes. But you're going to make it sound like that middle version where it's not staccato, but it's not legato. There's just a small little gentle space in between your notes. It's going to sound like this. I'm just going to play a little bit and then we can do it together. So you see, I'm just doing a gentle release in between each note, but it doesn't sound like the staccato, where it's much more sharp and there's a very distinct space. So let's play number 16. Here we go. Number 17, tremolo. This hopefully is not new for most of you. I think we have all played a piece of music with a tremolo in it at some point. It says there M to UH. That stands for middle to upper half. I'm going to say, though, when you do a tremolo, I want you as close to the tip as you can be, probably maybe this much of your bow you're going to use. And a tremolo basically means that you are going to play that value of note, so in this case, a half note. You're going to hold the note for that long, but as you hold it, you're going to go back and forth fast with your bow. So see how I'm not really in the middle. I don't like how they describe it as middle. I'm in the upper half, right? I'm really, really close to the tip. That is a tremolo. Now, a lot of people, when they play tremolo, will try to go like as fast as humanly possible. They'll go like this. That is not necessary. The point of a tremolo is to kind of make it sound like there's not really, it's just a sustained note that you're going back and forth on really fast. If we're doing this in a group, you're obviously not going to be moving at the same speed as your neighbor or the people behind you or the people across the room from you. And so it's all going to come together to sound really fast, but each individual person doesn't need to go out of control like super duper fast. You're just going back and forth with no real rhythm to it. Don't try to make them 16th notes. Don't try to make them fit within a beat. You're just going for the 2 beats worth and then moving on to the next note. So here's 17. Here we go. Tremolo. You will see that one a lot in your music, especially in orchestra music. Number 18, and there is a page turn here, so this is going to be a little bit awkward to play, but that's okay. Number 18 is going back and forth between arco, using your bow, and pizzicato, plucking. This is a great exercise for practicing getting into plucked position, pizzicato position, and then back to your bow hold. So in between each note, you could keep your bow hold, really, but you still have to get back to it. Or if you would like to practice, because we do this in class a lot, when you play extended pizzicato, I tell you to make the bad bow hold in the L, so you can actually practice. If I was doing this in a piece of music, I probably would keep my bow hold and just play the note. But I would say for us, because we have to practice going back and forth doing this a lot, let's take advantage of this time to practice that. So I'll do that with you here. We will have to awkwardly stop to turn the page, but we all have to do it, so that's okay. So here's number 18. Here we go. Awkwardly turn the page. Keep going. That's a goofy one, but it's a good one to practice. Now we're moving on to section 5. Number 19, section 5 is labeled double stops. Double stops is when you play 2 strings at once. Oftentimes in our orchestra music, when you see 2 notes written together, it will say D-I-V next to it, which means divide. That means I want half of you to play the top note and half of you to play the bottom note. In an orchestra, often it says that, although sometimes it says to play both. And if you're a soloist, if you're playing by yourself, you don't really have an option. You have to play them both. And I'll always tell you in class if I want you to divide them or if I want you to play them both. Sometimes it's almost not either. It's either impossible to play both notes or it's very difficult to play both notes, and that's why they have you divide. They want you to be really confident on the top notes or really confident on the bottom notes, and they'll come together within your section. But sometimes they actually want that sound of playing double stops. So I will always tell you what I want you to do. But in this case, we're going to practice doing our double stops. Depending on your instrument, what I'm about to say will either happen the first time through or the second time through. But when you do this, first they're having you put fingers down on the D string, and then they're having you put fingers down on the A string. Whichever of those strings is lower for you, because you're keeping your bow on both strings, when you play with putting fingers on the lower string, you have to do what's called a finger tunnel. So for me, my D string is lower than my A string, and when I put fingers down on the D string, I have to be really careful that I'm not touching. I'm just trying to make sure you can see what I'm trying to show you. You sort of can. There we go. That I'm not touching the A string with my fingers, or else it won't vibrate. It won't make any sound. Let me show you. So I'm not touching, right, with my index finger. I'm putting it down on the string, but it's not touching the A string. If I did touch, if I wasn't doing a finger tunnel, hear that sound? Let me just tune real quick. I can tell my strings have gone a little bit out of tune. Always good to just pause and tune with the tuner if something doesn't sound right. There, that's better. Okay, so you're going to keep your bow on both the D and the A strings, either add a finger to the D string or add a finger to the A string on the way back up. What you're actually really doing is playing a D major scale. You'll probably notice that. So for the first 4 measures, you play open A with a finger on D, and for the last 4 measures, you play open D with a finger on A. So nice big full bows for this. Here's number 19. Ready? Here we go. 2, 3, 4. Both open. Bow for that doesn't move at all. It moves up and down, but it stays in the same angle on the D and the A string the whole time. That's the whole section, number 5. It's just 19 for the double stops. Number 20, which is part of section 6, long tones. You can see that there's 3 Fs, fortissimo, very, very, very loud, and there are tied 3 whole notes together. So 4, 8, 12 beats per note. So they want you to really dig in, really move that bow, but you still have to find a balance to see if you can get all 12 beats into that bow. So don't move it so fast that you run out of bow. I'm actually going to leave these for you guys to work on your own, because we actually have been practicing G string notes, reading them in class. So I want to make sure everyone can read these notes on their own. And we're going to finish with section 7, string crossing, so 21, 22, and 23. These are similar to what we did with number 19 with the double stops and having to do finger tunnels, but the difference is this time you're actually moving your bow back and forth. This is a tough one. This is probably the hardest thing of the whole lesson for this week, so this might be the thing that you want to focus on. I'm going to play this for you. Number 21 sounds like this. So this time you're going back and forth every note. One bow stroke, down, up, down, up, down, up. It sounds like this. And you can see if the note that I'm playing, if I'm going E, A, E, A, I'm not going E, A, E, A. I'm not taking my finger off in between. I'm keeping it down. Keeping that finger tunnel. Number 22, it's the same notes, but this time it's down, up, 2 notes per bow. Okay, so here we go. Off there. That is some tricky stuff. And now number 23, 4 notes per bow. We'll give this a try. Here we go. All right. So that takes us to section 8. And that's the thing that we are going to spend most of our time on next week, because it's something called shifting. It's a technique that our 8th graders have already learned, but most of our 7th graders have not learned this yet, and it's such an important skill. It's one of the most important skills that I want you to leave middle school knowing. So we are going to spend a lot of time next time talking about shifting, But for this week, you just have these bowing techniques to work on, some double stops and some string crossings, and we will go over these in class together. So everyone have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in class. All right, great job sticking through to the end of the video. I have here a jar of one of my favorite candies, peanut butter M&Ms. Before the next day 1, that means by 11:59 on day 6, email me your guess of how many M&Ms are in this jar. The closest person in the class will win a prize. It won't be these because my classroom is peanut free and there is no way there will be any of these left by day 1. But send me your guess and the closest person will win a prize. And by the way, in case you think I'm just eating junk food all week, I want to show you I do have a ton of fruit here too. So make sure that you are eating your fruits and vegetables. Have a great day and I will see you in class.